Crypto is booming right now, and asset management companies are flipping on the jets. They are becoming more and more involved in crypto. They are becoming more aware of how volatile this market is and how early even they are within this market. When we look at the crypto market cap, $3.65 trillion, this is just the starting point. We got to remember that we're just sitting over the all-time highs from 2021. And if we're thinking about the all-time highs recently from roughly December and January of this year, if we actually look at the market cap of crypto and we just look at the 1-year time frame, guys, the all-time highs back in December, it wasn't even $4 trillion. It was $3.72 trillion. So when we think about where we are at right now, okay, and if we zoom all the way out, we are just consolidating around and under the all-time highs. We are just getting started, in my opinion. And when we really start to wake up, when we really start to see alt season showing up, we are going to witness some of the most violent moves on these charts. Now, when we are talking about that, we have to obviously address the elephant in the room, which is Bitcoin. I know that you guys hate hearing me talk about Bitcoin. I get it. I understand what you guys mean, right? But the thing is that Bitcoin is such a crucial piece of the puzzle for all of this actually happen. Because the more that Bitcoin actually goes up and the more liquidity that flows into Bitcoin, it's the more liquidity that will trickle down into Ethereum, into altcoins, and that will pump our bags even more. Also, the higher that Bitcoin goes, while Bitcoin dominance is dropping, the higher that altcoins go as well. And currently, we have just been consolidating on Bitcoin ever since the big move to 100 and almost 19K on the 11th. Obviously, it's only been about roughly 24 hours since that move, but we are now starting to consolidate, waiting for the next big squeeze. It kind of reminds me of the original push on the 9th to about 112K, and then we just consolidate it. And this happened only for about roughly, a day into the 11th. And that's what really kind of led us to these big targets here, which was almost 120K. So right now we're kind of doing that same pattern. It's a little bit more extended. I'm fine giving it a little bit more time because that will eventually lead us into that big push to the upside. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin, I'm also focused on Ethereum because we have been looking at Ethereum. We have been watching this one closely because of phase 2, the big warning sign that altcoins are also about to push higher. We're just under 3K. We need to flip 3K. That will signal the shift to $4,000. And the big target to actually flip here is about 3,400. 3,400 will lead us to 4K. 4K will lead us to all-time highs being retested, which will lead to price discovery on Ethereum. And by the way, both Bitcoin and Ethereum exchange reserves are dropping significantly, which is telling us that buying demand of both Bitcoin and Ethereum is surging at a time where, enterprise and institutional adoption of these two is also surging. The ETFs are demanding a lot of supply. And when it comes to Bitcoin, the supply is just not there. Let's just be honest there, right? So that will lead to a supply shock, which will send Bitcoin even higher, which will also lead to altcoins getting sent significantly higher. So then we're looking at XRP, okay? So XRP is also in a very, very interesting, position here because we just recently started to have that nice little push back to almost $3. We're retesting some significant resistance. We're having that nice little sell-off, right? You can see that here, but this is absolutely nothing. XRP is primed for a much larger move here, especially if we're thinking about how bullish Bitcoin and even Ethereum are and how we're leading into phase 2. Also, when it comes to XRP, it kind of has that same narrative behind it. Institutional adoption, institutional focus is heating up more and more. We're starting to see even companies adding XRP to their trust reserves, which is very good to see. And XRP is also involved on multiple major moves happening around the government, right? Which we kind of think about stablecoin initiatives. We also think about the Truth Social ETF filing. We also think about all of the ETFs that are happening behind the scenes for XRP. I mean, when we think about the environment around XRP right now, it is extremely bullish. And I think that anyone that's, avoiding the topic about how bullish XRP is, they're clearly choosing to be ignorant of it because, again, maybe they might be a Bitcoin maxi. But it's very easy to just look at the all-time chart here. We could even look at the candle bodies, right? Look at how bullish this chart is. We talked about 8 monthly candles in a row of consolidation on XRP above the all-time high monthly candle closes back in 2017 and 2018. XRP has been primed for this big move for quite some time now, and we're starting to have it heat up, and we love to see this. Now, it's at a time where retail just isn't here. I understand that you guys might be saying, Nick, you always use this narrative that retail's not here, that they're going to flood in, but it's the truth, right? Like until we have Coinbase and all of these crypto exchange applications on mobile phones in the trending area, right? Trending to like number 1 on, the charts. And until we see Google Trends also aligning with the fact that retail is here, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to keep saying that retail is just not here. Google Trends in terms of altcoins to buy, it's at like all-time lows. Crypto to buy, also flatlined. Bitcoin, also pretty flat at the same time that Bitcoin just broke to a new all-time high and it's trading just under 120K. But Bitcoin, I mean, the interest around Bitcoin is so low. In fact, it's just around the same levels from like October, September, and even August of 2024. Guys, look at August, September, and October of 2024 compared to where we are at now. And XRP, yeah, XRP might have this nice spike here. Sure, that's great to see. But interest is still significantly lower compared to the highs that it recently hit back in the beginning of January and the end of December, which is when we hit these highs here. But it's crazy to me because, again, retail is just simply not here. And when it comes to XRP, we have XRP's market value has hit a 7-week high, crossing above $2.39 for the first time since May 23rd. What to watch for are the rising number and collective balances of whales holding at least 1 million XRP. There are currently 2,742 wallets holding at least 1 million XRP. One off from yesterday's all-time high of 2,743. Additionally, these 1 million plus wallets collectively hold 47.32 billion XRP. As they continue to show confidence in the number 4 market cap's future. Now, we know it's number 3 at this point, but yeah, this is also showing us that whales are accumulating XRP in a huge way. They are aware of how bullish the overall chart for XRP is, but also the entire environment around altcoins, which is only going to send XRP even higher. And then we think about Bitcoin, right? We have to go back to Bitcoin and we have to think about the supply, all right? We have been focused on the Bitcoin balances on exchanges, which are dropping in a huge way. Now, a lot of people are actually speculating that this will lead to a supply shock. It may be a meme, but real supply constraints are happening elsewhere. And yeah, for the longest time, a lot of people utilize this narrative about how Bitcoin's going to see a supply shock and it's going to do this, it's going to do that. Guys, it is something that can happen, okay? With institutional adoption happening the way that it is, with ETF, purchases happening all the time, and by the way, the inflows are pretty significant on those ETFs. When we combine that with retail buying it up, also companies adding Bitcoin to their trust and the reserves, and then also we think about the U.S. reserves. We don't know what's going on with that. We haven't really heard too much about it, but we do know that it was something that got announced this year. When we think about all of that demand for Bitcoin, yeah, it could lead to a supply shock. And it's also at the same time that asset management companies like Bitwise are giving us the facts. Companies are buying Bitcoin. Q2 2025 edition from Bitwise. Here we actually have it, right? Total Bitcoin holdings, 847,000. This is a 23.13% change quarter over quarter. 4.03% of 21 million total Bitcoin supply. And we can actually see the quarterly Bitcoin holdings. This continues to surge, especially in 2025. And we have total value of Bitcoin holdings, 91 billion, 60.93% change quarter over quarter. And we also have number of public companies holding Bitcoin, 125. This continues to change. And again, this is telling us that the supply for Bitcoin is getting eaten up, which will lead to a supply shock. And this leads me to the conversation happening around crypto in terms of altcoins. Okay, if Bitcoin is going to have a supply shock and it's going to surge significantly higher, while Bitcoin dominance drops, and you might be saying, well, Nick, how is Bitcoin dominance going to drop if all of these companies are buying up Bitcoin and there's going to be a supply shock? It's the fact that it's also happening for Ethereum, and it's also happening for altcoins like XRP. Believe it or not, XRP is also witnessing a big supply shock. It might not happen as fast as Bitcoin because of the supply difference here, but whales are accumulating massive amounts of XRP as well. This is where we actually look at XRP dominance. XRP dominance is starting to break out of that downtrend. And I'm watching this closely here because, again, even against Bitcoin, XRP has been gaining momentum. I have levels listed on this chart. The first major target zone is about 6% to 8%. The next one after that is about 11% to 14.3%. If we are looking at Bitcoin continuing to surge here, if we're thinking about how the environment around crypto just becomes more and more bullish, even long term, by the way. I mean, crypto right now is very early. If we're thinking about how bullish things are going to get, if we're thinking about how the supply is just going to continue to diminish across the board, that's telling us that some of the most prominent projects in this space, XRP definitely being one of them, they're just going to see more adoption, more buying pressure, and with mainstream adoption of crypto from the retail sector, we have the perfect narrative for supply shocks. We have retail buying up a ton of supply. We have institutional players continuing to push ETFs, which is also leading to more supply getting eaten up. We also have, banks wanting to hold XRP or hold crypto as well. We already know that they got the green light from the OCC, the FDIC, and even the Fed. They will want to hold crypto. You might be thinking that, oh no, that's crazy. But if you think about it, right, why wouldn't they want to hold crypto? They have been pushing into institutional DeFi services. They've also been pushing into reserves as well, and also just offering buying, selling, and trading of crypto assets. They need to hold them in reserves. This is the perfect narrative for supply to diminish greatly, which will lead to a supply shock. But also, if we're thinking about just this cycle alone, okay, Bitcoin is trading at about $117,400. I have this push to $200,000, a 70% increase on Bitcoin. At the same time that Bitcoin dominance is starting to weaken a bit, we're sitting at about 63.8%. If we see Bitcoin dominance drop 30% back to the levels from roughly the bottom of 2021, while Bitcoin pushes 70%, imagine what that's going to do for altcoins like XRP. I've talked about it in the past, right? Going off of just dominance figures compared to the total market cap of crypto, I do think that we hit 5 to 7 trillion. If we're looking at XRP right now, we're very close to 5%. Okay. If we hit 5 to 7 trillion at 5% dominance, that's a $4 and almost 40-cent XRP to about $6.12. If we are going to see 12% reclaimed, okay, and yes, we can go much higher here. At 5 to 7 trillion, that is a almost $10.50 XRP to about almost $14.70 XRP. This is why I said that $10 to $15 might be an extreme target zone, but it's also a zone that can happen very quick, especially if we zoom out on XRP and think back to 2017, where XRP was trading at 31.4% market dominance. That could happen again. We just take it one step at a time here, and we take a look at the macro view. Looking at this thing on the 3-week chart, XRP is primed for a much larger breakout on the dominance chart, and I do believe that this will regain double digits, which will, at that time, we'll definitely circle back and talk a little bit more about where XRP is trading, because I do think that we'll be trading at about roughly $7 for XRP during that time. But it all depends on how high, Bitcoin and the rest of this market goes. But Bitwise has been extremely bullish. They recently did talk about $200,000 by the end of the year for Bitcoin, which is why I did talk about this $200,000 target for Bitcoin. Obviously, I'm not going to play the video because it's just the idea that, Bitwise's CIO expects Bitcoin to just continue going higher because of, more institutional adoption, ETFs. The ETFs have been very successful. The demand for Bitcoin is also rising, this, that, whatever. But he is correct. I mean, the environment right now around this entire space is very, very bullish. Even if we go to 150K on Bitcoin, okay, the best part about this is that even at 150K, we're still talking about a 30% gain from where we currently are. A 30% gain almost with a 30% drop on Bitcoin dominance, that will send altcoins going absolutely parabolic still. But the higher that Bitcoin goes, we should be cheering it on because, Bitcoin definitely is a huge liquidity player here because most of the liquidity around crypto is in Bitcoin and even Ethereum. So once we start to see that liquidity trickle down, we're going to see altcoins go crazy. And right now, the supply metrics around Ethereum and Bitcoin and even XRP, you can clearly see it. Accumulation is happening in a big way. So I'm very excited for what's to come. I think XRP is about to wake up in a huge way, and we need to be paying attention to this. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.